Social music talk. So explain that relationship of how you still working with artists, right? Doing what you love, right? And
Yeah. Well, what I did when I left Virgin, one of the reasons I left because I was doing radio promotion for many years, and I was a creative person, and I wasn't able to. I didn't think I was able to really, express my creativity much. So I had another friend, Dana Walden, who you may recall wrote the song "How About Us" and had the song "Try Again" with the band Champagne.
I know the
He was a
hit.
good friend of mine, and he had a 24-track studio. He says, "Hey, listen, why don't we start a label? And you can do the marketing and promotion. I can do the producing." And I figured, okay, I can do that, and I can make my income by being an independent record promoter. So I went to Capitol Records and Geffen Records, two of my friends there, and I said, look, I'm thinking of leaving Virgin, and these guys were friends of mine that I trusted. I said, would you hire me if I left? Because I knew I needed at least two accounts to make the money I needed to make, and then to develop the record label. And they said, yes, of course we'd hire you. So as soon as I quit Virgin, I had Geffen and Capitol account. And then because I was successful at Virgin with Lenny Kravitz and Paula Abdul and all these artists, that I got hired a lot. And that really started my independent career. And I really have never looked back.
That's great to run it your way. And you have a book coming out. Tell us about your book.
Wow, it's not coming out yet. I hope to have it out by March. I'm still writing it.
Okay.
Well, the book is not about the music business. As you know, I studied the martial arts for many years, and I kind of subscribe to Eastern philosophy, the Buddha philosophy, and I'm always, we're trying to improve ourselves all the time as individuals, and I'm always trying to work on my flaws and fix myself, make myself a better person and fix my character and fix working on myself. So I thought it was cathartic for me to start writing all the things I wanted to work on for myself, and then also started to, explore things that really make up who we are emotionally, where there's integrity and ethics and morals and, what makes up our character, what things make up our character, and how we can actually look in the mirror and be honest with ourselves and try to improve ourselves. And then hopefully by doing that, we become a happier person. And then I wanted to apply that into the workforce, into the corporate world, becoming a more productive worker, a happier worker, and obviously ultimately a happier person. And that's the genesis. That was the genesis of the book. And hopefully that comes across the way I write it. Who knows? I'm not a writer. It's my first thing I've ever written. So
Okay.
that's
it'll
a
be
work
called
in progress.
Corporate Fitness is the title.
Corporate fitness, because it has a lot to do with, wellness, nutrition, wellness, health, attitude. And then, so you have to be fit mentally, spiritually, and everything to be. I think it improves your work ethic and improves your the way you work and approach things.
Especially
I said,
that sounds like good advice for the corporate world in general when you consider where it's been. Like the biggest corporate stories have been disaster stories like Enron and PG&E and just, big banks. And it's like when you study the history of corporations, you you come across a lot of stuff that you don't realize is going on all the time that, is kind of shady. But there's also another side to the corporate world that, pays people their salaries and it serves a good purpose in the sense that, it helps the economy to have a corporation like in the music industry maybe that can handle all the business stuff.
There's nothing inherently wrong with making a lot of money. I have no problem with people making a lot of money at all. I mean, I think it's great. It's about how you obtain the money or how you conduct yourself in your daily activity. That's my concern in terms of, and I'm not preaching any of this stuff. I'm just writing it, and if it resonates, it resonates. But I have nothing. I think it's great to make money, and like you just said, I think society. This is how we live. But when greed overtakes, is the reason to make money because you just want to have money as opposed to doing it, doing it with integrity and creating something that you can be proud of, that's useful, um, then I think the foundation of that greed and everything else is because we are not grounded with ourselves emotionally and spiritually and all that. So that's what that book, I want to help people become healthier individuals with your personal character, be happy with yourself. And then when you approach work and you approach making money and doing whatever you do, it's just a different mindset. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
So it's not necessarily just aimed at CEOs, but it could be any worker.
Well, what I'd like to do is do some corporate seminars for CEOs in their management teams, to have them work in a better, more healthy environment. If everyone's healthier mentally, spiritually, the environment's going to be a healthier environment and more productive. And that's what everybody wants to be productive.
Right.
And,
What's amazing.
But everybody's so sick right now. Everybody's taking pills and everyone's screwed up with alcohol and drugs, and because they're not working with the correct intention.
Well, here's my theory. If you put all the puzzle pieces together, you got news, nightly news that the biggest sponsors are pharma companies, and the news, the networks, they constantly shell out bad news. That seems to be what they're looking for the most. And then the answer is the pharma drugs, and then people overdo it with that. They line up too much in hospitals for that kind of stuff that boosts the prices, and then you just have a lot of problems that stem from people being brainwashed by television, I think.
Yeah, well, when I talk to friends and when I'm having a beer or something, when I get into this discussion, I always say, and I'll have a lot of pushback on this, I'm sure, but I always say I think we started falling apart when the advertising became what it is, pushing stuff. It's from TV, obviously. So yeah, I believe we are brainwashed, and we need to be better, more well grounded with who we are, instead of who we think we are, or how we care about how we're perceived and all that. So once we're more grounded and we really truly know ourselves, we have to really know ourselves and be honest with ourselves of who we are, and then we're not so fragile and we're not so vulnerable to the advertising.
Right.
And I think I think we're so fragile that we listen to everything. We listen to the news, politics, the advertising, and we don't know what the hell to do because we don't know who we are. We're so fragmented inside emotionally.
Yet music last century seemed to be the answer to that more than any kind of drugs. But now it doesn't seem like. It seems like music's a little overshadowed now by tech, tech platforms.
Yeah. It's a business. It's a music business. I mean, you can not treat it as a business and be a great musician, or you can treat it as a business and you can still be a great musician and be a business person as well. But when the business has overtaken the art, that's where the fine line is. There's room for tech. I think tech's good if it's used properly, like anything else. I mean, it's a tool.
Right.
It's nothing more than a tool. And if you use that in an artistic way, I mean, look at Steve Jobs and what he's done with Apple. It's very artistic.
He's one of my heroes.
It's helping. Yeah, it's helping. It's helped musicians. It's helped make better music. It's helped create more businesses. So yeah, I don't have any. There's nothing. I don't think wrong with technology at all.
Well, that opens up the topic when it comes to music, that it just seems like the record labels, the big ones who were in charge of the direction of the music industry in the 90s, they just weren't paying attention to tech.
Yeah.
And so tech kind of came in and took over music instead of the other way around.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Like Apple is like the king of music right now, it seems to me. I mean, you can consider Spotify, but they're not a profitable company, and Apple is, and I don't know about their music division, but it just seems like they're the leaders.
Well, they've been patient too, and they had a vision, and they understand they got to take step A, step B, step C, and now of course they're getting into the services business with streaming and TV and like Netflix and things like that. But they were patient, and they saw the big picture, and it's a puzzle. there's many moving parts and many verticals under Apple, of course. So it's not just about hardware, software. They have the vision. And that's why they're so obviously $1 trillion company is successful. And tech with the labels back in the 90s did take their eye off the ball. They didn't want to believe that they had to change. They had to change in their approach, because inherently a lot of people, I wouldn't say they're lazy necessarily, but when they're used to doing something a certain way, a traditional way, and it had worked and everybody got rich, and they didn't want to change. But they had to. But they didn't want to, and they thought, okay, I can keep going on this just a little longer, another couple of years. These are the guys that are making the decisions. They're back then they're in the 50s or whatever. It's like, oh, I just need a couple more years under my belt and I'm out of here. And in those few years is when everything was changing, and they didn't want to put the effort in. They were too wealthy and older, and they just were too lazy. They didn't want to change. And I that's my personal opinion. I could be wrong, of course, but that's the observations.
Right.
Because I was independent at that time, and I was watching all this go around. I'm thinking, wow, these guys are missing this boat here.
So how do you survive as an independent in this world where the music biz is uncertain, don't you think?
Uncertain. I don't think it's uncertain. I think it's all, it's evolving for sure. I don't think it's uncertain. I think you have to know where the next trends are, or you're creating new trends. I'm doing some work with a new company right now that's actually creating a new trend, I think. But yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with social media now. Let's be honest. I mean, Everyone's on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and so it's always been about one thing: how does the artist reach as many people as possible? That's all it's ever been about. And then does their music resonate with that listener, and they're going to be able to sell it? I mean, it's a simple equation, really. So the social media is a really a component to for an artist to just to be successful. So I think the social media companies now, they're the ones that are having all the power. I see that they're popping up all over the place. And how do you reach millions of people? Whether now they got YouTube, of course, and Twitter and
TikTok is this happening thing on
TikTok is blowing up big time.
Yeah.
I mean, so these kids are really creative, and then they get the influencers who have got the YouTube channels, and they've got millions of people, and these young kids that are 15 years old are making a ton of money because the labels even are paying these kids to say, hey, mention my artist's name, or talk about my artist, and I'll give you X amount of dollars. And so they're called the influencers, and they're really, those are the ones who have all the power, and some of them are only 14, 15 years old.
So then explain how someone becomes an influencer.
Well, like anything else, I think you have to, something goes viral. How does something go viral? Is it shocking? Is it something you haven't seen before? Is it outrageous? It has to be outrageous in some way. So there might be someone that does something outrageous every week or every couple of days, or that's something that he or she is known for. People keep going to the channel because there's always content, and it's always interesting, whether it's funny, dangerous, whatever. It has to be sort of outrageous to get people, just like you just mentioned it, TV. TV has the sensationalism of the news. It's always negative. It's always sensational. So that's why we turn in. What the hell's going on? We got to watch this. Same as the YouTube or any of these channels or any of these influencers. They're doing something where people are drawn to come back and see what this person's doing next. And they have a lot of followers. And that person might say, hey, listen to the new XYZ record. I love this new artist. That's cool really right now. And all of a sudden, all their followers go, oh, I got to check this new artist out. So it's social media marketing is what it is. But those guys that have those followers, I mean, I don't know. I wish I knew,
Social music.